Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Louis D'Souza, and this is your daily dose of happy. We're so happy you decided to join us today. Amy Blackford is getting closer and closer to being able to join us. She's not quite ready to join us yet. That move that she's been doing has been a little bit more than she expected, which I guess, well, when you think about it, that's the way moves usually are. They're a little bit more than we expected, but we think she's going to be back soon, so we'll be looking forward to that. But in the meantime, Louis, my friend, how's things over there across the big pond, as it's often called?
Oh, London is cold and wet. What's a surprise?
Cold and wet, yes. Yeah,
a lot of rain at the moment, so not so much outdoors as we would like, but you know, we've got lockdown as well, so there's a whole lot of parameters going on at the moment we have to deal with.
And that's actually an appropriate thing to bring up because we've been receiving a fair amount of email lately for all the different episodes, particularly with the Friday episode with Linda and Rita. And there was one email that we got regarding a recent episode that included a question that I thought it might be better for you and me to answer rather than Rita, just because of the nature of the question. So let me read the question to you, and then we can kind of have at it.
Oh.
So this is from a listener named Anne-Marie, and she said, "You answered a question for me previously, and thank you for your wonderful response. My husband was laid off, and we were really trying to stay positive, and I know in my heart that it's going to be fine. However, I'm struggling to keep my vibe up generally over my life. I'm focusing on what I call my toolbox of techniques, which usually help, but it's feeling really hard. Can you see anything that will help clear this cloudy mind of mine? Thank you for all that you do. I love listening to the podcast while working from home in lockdown." So there's something that it's a question directly coming from COVID. You mentioned the COVID lockdown, and it's becoming more and more serious as a number of cases are currently on the rise. So a lot of people are dealing with it. A lot of people are dealing with the lack of income that has gone along with it. A lot of jobs have been lost. Some have been recovered, but a lot of people are still without work. And so obviously this is a big deal for a lot of people. And I figure if there's anybody who knows how to get back into that high vibe place, it's Louis D'Souza. So I thought I would save this one for Louis. So what do you think?
Well,
what can we tell
thanks for the
Anne-Marie?
vote of confidence, but it is a challenge because what somebody must understand about vibration is the work you put in beforehand, in the past. So if you're practiced high vibration over a longer period of time and practice getting back into a higher vibration in the past more and more often, then it is easier and easier as it goes along. And of course, the law of attraction kicks in and helps you out even more. So it's challenging because it really is tough times for a lot of people, not only because of COVID, financially, relationships. You know, my wife works palliative care where people go to die and they're not allowed to be visited. And, you know, it's just a crying shame and how the things are all working out, you know. People are having video conference calls while the person's dying instead of actually being there. And, you know, it's really harsh. So, you know, a lot of people are having many different types of challenges, about staying more positive about the whole scenario. And, one of the things I learned along the way in my life is to be extremely flexible and ultimately not to have any opinion.
What do you mean by that, not to have an opinion?
It's a very good question because
Thank you.
if you don't have opinion, you can chop and change wherever you are. You can deal with any situation. But if you have a fixed opinion, you've got to deal with the opinion and then the situation. So, you know, what I'm saying is if you're flexible enough to learn and grow and know that there is so much more that you don't know rather than what you do know, and that if you're open to that, you can expand and expand and expand and have an incredible life that's incredibly exciting. But if you're focused on, this is my opinion and I'm going to fight for it, it becomes a bit of a dog-eat-dog kind of situation where, you're trying to prove to the world that you're right and somebody else is wrong. It's first of all, the big thing is it's energy draining, and
Yes.
it is more difficult to get back onto that high vibe, which is what Anne-Marie is always was asking about. So, if you go into the COVID situation and you're in lockdown, as I am at the moment, and you're saying to yourself, let me be flexible. I've got my family, I've got my stray cat that comes in and lives with us, which is lightening up the whole mood and really enjoying it. And, I'm just counting all the things that I do like and do love. And they really, really are something that you can get into a very deep and enjoyable relationship with. I'm finding more online things to do as well to compensate for the offline things that I can't do. Can't go to the club anymore. I can't spend time in the sauna. So I'm trying to find more online groups that I can chat in, etc., and finding more of those. And, being adaptive. So if you don't have too many opinions that, the weather's rainy and it's terrible and, I don't like it when it rains and there's nothing I can do when it rains. And, when you've got that kind of attitude in your mind, I love any type of weather. It really doesn't matter what it is. If it's raining, I love the freshness of the rain and the clarity of the rain. If it's sunny, I love tanning and getting the vitamin D in my body and lying, going to the beach or lying in the hammock outside, or going for walks. I love that too. Autumn, I love that time. The leaves are just so gorgeous at the moment. We went to a park. It rained a little bit at a time. There was sun a little bit at a time. There was beautiful fresh air. There was these lovely leaves. The other day when we went out for a bit of exercise. So it was really just really, really enjoyable. So you just be flexible. You don't have too many opinions about things. You don't listen to other people's opinions. You just handle what's in front of you and move forward. There's two things in your life that'll bog you down into negativity, Anne-Marie, and that is things that happen in your past, memory as they call it, memory of what you didn't want or don't like or don't want, okay? And then there's the creative aspect of the human. These are the two most powerful aspects of a human, and they can either destroy you or they can build you. And so you've got your creative aspect or your dreaming aspect or what you want aspect. So you've got these two aspects there sitting there. And if you are focused on what you don't want about what happened in the past and you're living that in the present and you're bringing it into the present, or if you're worried about not having finances in the future, then you're not living in the now. Because if you actually look at where you are now, you've still got a house, you've still got a job, you've still got some kind of income coming in, you've still got water coming out of the tap, you've still got food, you've still got stuff. So, just appreciate where you are and what you've got to the highest degree you can. And those two aspects are very, very powerful, your memory and your creativity. So if you're playing with them correctly, you are creating the life of your dreams. And if you're using them wrongly, you are absolutely destroying your life. You're going one way down a hole, and that, of course, the law of attraction is going to amplify that. So you really want to get into that mode of just living in the present. So many people have talked about, living in the now. But once you start understanding it, it's a combination of looking where you are at the moment and just appreciating where you are and what you've got. And there are things you can like and appreciate. There are. Even if it is the fact that you're still awake, you're still alive. That's the primary thing. If there's anything that's more primary, is if you wake up in the morning and say, I'm alive. How many people are dead this morning? If you look at the stats of how many people die every day, it's huge, and you're alive. And you count your family and your friends that are also alive, and you say, wow, this is amazing. This is lovely. And we're all still here together, and let's carry on. Let's have fun, But I find that when you start doing that, you start really appreciating and respecting and loving the life that you've got and where you're going. So, just build into it, bake into it, just take it like you're making some cookies or a cake, put in all the ingredients, mix it around, and then put it in the oven and just chew it, just enjoy it, just cream it and enjoy it, and, it's spend time cooking, take out some of Jamie Oliver's, it's a good famous English chef, recipes. You can get them online, anywhere. And he's got some great ones. Sit down and just spend some time making a really nice meal of his, cause you've got more time. You're at home a bit more. Just spend some time with the basics. My wife made a whole lot of things this weekend. She made, French toast, which we haven't had forever. What else do we have? We have three delicious things that, you normally don't get. And we had this weekend, and we got a little more time on our hands, and, she's making jams and jellies and all the rest of it. And it's just lovely. You got these homemade, freshly made, marmalades and, crab apple jelly, etc. And, we went out and picked the crab apples off a tree when we were walking in the park exercising,
Oh, nice.
And, you can pick up bucket loads of them in this country, and just come back and boil them and do what you need to turn them into jelly. And, we don't like a lot of sugar in our stuff. So, the shelf life is short, but it's not so sweet and, and all the rest of it. So, just go out there and find something that you can really enjoy, and that, there's nothing like a Jamie Oliver meal. I don't know if you ever tried one, but it's just got all the spices and flavors are just so gorgeous, You just have one of those and you're just sitting like on cloud nine. And I'm not a big foodie. I'm not a big foodie. And
you have me convinced. I'm telling you.
Yeah. You can really appreciate that. Really, really appreciate that. So getting into that place where you can, find different communities online, that you can appreciate. I've started a new game at the moment, and there's a lovely Discord, which is a voice and video application which gamers talk on. And I built up a huge group of people already,
nice.
which we're all talking to and relating to, and a lot of them are philosophical, and, because that's the kind of guys I draw to me. And so we're having these great debates and all the rest of it. And these are just gamers that are also bored staying at home and, trying to do something. So, there's a whole gambit of things that anybody can do if they just want to be creative enough and let go. I would be happy just sitting in my room, meditating and doing nothing, absolutely nothing. 'Cause I can enjoy my own company tremendously, and it's very easy for me. So, it's something that I learned with my sister. She came and stayed with me for a long period of time, and I said, "Sis, I can stay in the house and do nothing. Very, very little, but I'm not sure you can." And she really struggled in the beginning because she had just come out of a relationship and she was spending time with me. So she spent a year there, and eventually by the end of the year, she was completely happy with her own company. And then she found the right man. It was just like doof, doof, doof.
Oh yeah, that's the way it works.
And it was it was a difficult transition for her to go to just being confident, happy by herself. Yeah. She was using Louise Hay's book, doing the affirmations, doing Jinshin, because she's also big into Jinshin Jitsu, the energy techniques. So she was balancing her body and her health and all the rest of it. So, it's good.
It is good. I love you came up with a whole list of possible things to do to basically focus on what feels good, because obviously the reason that we get in that cloudy mind state that she mentioned is because we're focusing on the stuff we don't like. We don't like the fact that we're unemployed. We don't like the fact that we're in lockdown. We don't like the fact that there's all this terrible stuff on the news about being unemployed and in lockdown. And we don't like the fact that there are other people who are complaining about being in lockdown or being unemployed. And that's how we get in the cloudy mindset. And all of the examples you gave are wonderful examples for how to get out of the cloudy mindset. You simply change the topic. You change the subject. And it's a little bit difficult at first, but once you get on the roll, it's a whole lot easier. That's what I find.
So what you're doing is you're not focusing on the subject that you've got, and you're getting into the high-flying disc. And then when you look back at that subject, you'll be able to find solutions you never dreamt of that just fall into place. So this is the key to now changing back to the job and all the rest of it and where you are financially, etc., and how you can find multiple streams of income. I'm a big fan of multiple streams of income, finding money that can come from different places and different areas and all the rest of it. If you're focused if you only have one stream of income, when that dries up, then you've got nothing. So if you've got a little bit of money coming in here, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, when one dries up, the others are flowing, and so you continue and go like that. But there's a book I read, it's called Multiple Streams of Income. I can't remember who wrote it many years ago. But I sat there and I think I read the first 2 or 3 pages. I got the concept and I put the book away.
All right.
Because I'm sold. I don't have to read the book. And after that, we started picking up bits and pieces in different areas. My wife's got one income. I've got 3 incomes. And I've got the ability to tap into different ones along the way as well. So, getting somebody into that place of flexibility, and again, not being so opinionated that I've got to have this job and I've got to be this and I've got to do that and I've got to do the other. Just stepping back and say, universe, anything can happen, anything. Just throw it at me. Let's see what I can do. Let me flow with it, and then just roll with the punches and just see what happens, and get into the flow of being flexible, because we're so inflexible as humans, and we're often inflexible because we have too many opinions. My mentor once said to me, Louis, do you really believe that? And I said to her, yeah. She said, you do know that when you make yourself right, you're making somebody else wrong. And I was like, I hadn't really thought about that. So, I'm very, very big on not having any opinions at all. And a lot of people would disagree with that. You've got to have an opinion, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. But, if you step back and stop having all these opinions, your flexibility level and your experiential level and your ability to carpe diem, just absolutely seize the day and live life, becomes so much more, and it takes people time to get into the idea that, I mustn't be that opinionated or have almost no opinions. Now, I've always thought, from quite a young age, because I'm very philosophical, that I love the idea of having nowhere to stand, which means no opinions, because then I can stand anywhere. So, if you're over there and I'm so flexible, I can just stand there, I was thinking martial arts most of the time. So, if you're not anywhere, then you can be anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult concept to grasp in the beginning, but once you get it, you really get that level of flexibility that you can have in your own mind, body, and experience. So, I've found myself needing very, very little outside myself anymore, and I'm finding more and more completion within myself, which means that if somebody slaps me through the face, somebody disagrees with me violently or anything like that, it's really a non-entity to me. It's like, okay, it's your opinion. Next. It's really of no consequence to me whatsoever.
That's a great attitude.
And, out of that comes an incredible level of resilience, and, just nobody challenges me. It just doesn't happen. And it's not because of any other reason than I just don't feel that I want to be challenged. I've got no focus on it, and I'm just focused on where I'm going. And, if people want to follow or interested, then they come with, and if they don't, they go their own way, and that's it. Game over. It's a really very easy flowing way of life. And it also allows you to really focus on what you want and to manifest it, because you're now not needing to drag everybody with you or anything like that. You're just going out, getting it, and the cooperative components will be drawn in by the law of attraction, and then you'll ride that wave into the future of where you're going. And it's a journey, but the thinking that one needs to have really needs to be turned around 360 degree for a lot of people. And that's
because of the fact they hold opinions. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because they're very opinionated, and they need other people to agree with what they believe.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And that is a tremendously painful job, is to try to get Walt to agree with everything that I believe.
I can't even get Walt to agree with everything I believe. Seriously. And when you allow Walt just to be whatever Walt wants to be, and
and believe whatever Walt wants to believe. There's such a freedom in that. There's such a, that's nice. I love it when somebody says to me, I don't agree with that. I said, that's fantastic. I love that. That's brilliant. Why don't you disagree with it? Let's discuss that. And, it's a lot of fun. It really is. And, I used to be so serious about the subject world. I used to have butterflies in my stomach. And, I was really serious about life, the universe, and everything. And then I read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Douglas Adams, yes. Right.
That sorted me out.
Yeah, that'll do it really quickly.
So, and ever since that book, really, I've been much, much more flexible in not taking life so seriously. And you really must. It's really desirable for an individual.
Nice save. Kick save it a beauty. I like that. Ooh.
Desirable for an individual to really let that go,
That's very good. Yeah, I like that. Now, I will add in that, and I speak from personal experience here, that even with all of that wonderful information to keep in mind, and it's beautiful, I love every single word of that, I can still, I'm practically on demand, insist on focusing on what I don't want. I'm very good at it, and I know a lot of other people are too.
Isn't that great, Walt?
Yeah, it is. It's fabulous. It's a wonderful skill.
And if you keep on focusing on it, it's just going to get bigger, isn't it?
It just gets bigger and bigger. Talk about being reinforced about how powerful the law of attraction is. It's amazing. But the reason I point that out is even if we insist that we have to focus on these topics, there's still all kinds of ways that we can look at them in a way that feels good. For instance, with COVID, I mean, you can find plenty of negative news about COVID. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure I could point some out too. But there's a whole lot of news coming out right now about various treatments, vaccines, treatments when you already have it for COVID that are in the trial stage and are getting very close to release with some really, really high results. And if you're an anti-vaxxer, well, okay, that's fine. But there's still other treatments that are in the pipeline, so to speak, that treat it without vaccination. They just treat the disease when you get the disease. So, it's not like there's no hope about what's going on. It's not like the whole thing is just, falling apart and the world is about to end. It's quite the opposite. There's actually a lot going on in the opposite direction. And that's where if I get myself into that knot where I say, oh God, the COVID thing just goes on forever, which by the way doesn't happen to me anymore. But on those rare occasions where it does happen, that's the kind of stuff I'm focusing on. Like there's a lot of cool stuff going on. A lot of cool stuff going on that to me, I'll tell you honestly, I've been saying this for a few months now. I think this is going to be done by next spring. I think this is going to be in the history part of our culture by next spring. And there are a lot of people who think that I'm crazy for saying that, but really, I really believe it's going to happen. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but God, all the signs point in that direction. And the same thing is true for the economy. Despite all the craziness, and COVID has certainly contributed to this, where the economy is concerned, the economy is in many ways trying very hard to bounce back. And to me, that just shows all kinds of possibilities. And, I saw an article, and I'm trying to remember where I saw it. I don't think it really matters actually where I saw it, but the article was talking about, it was the usual doom and gloom kind of article. It was the article that was talking about how so many small businesses have been wiped out, and aren't coming back because the owners of the businesses have decided, well, it's just not worth it anymore. So I'll just take my marbles and go home. And it occurred to me, wow, that creates all kinds of opportunity. You just have huge slices of the economy that were dominated by very small companies that aren't there anymore. I mean, how much more opportunity do you want? You've got all this demand out there and no one's supplying it. So again, it depends on how you want to look at it. Do you want to look at it from the doom and gloom side, or do you want to look at it from the possibility side? And I also like to remember again, now you mentioned a book that you couldn't remember, whether I don't know if it's the title or the author or something like that. I have a number of those myself, and one of them is a book that's about the Great Depression. And in that book, the book was basically about all of the fortunes that were made during the Great Depression. Now, we don't normally think about that, but in fact, a lot of people became very successful and very wealthy during the Great Depression. A lot more certainly than the textbooks tell us. The textbooks tell us that basically the whole thing fell off a cliff. But that's not actually what happens. Sure, a lot of people suffered. A lot of people had terrible situations. But a lot of people thrived. And that's because they just saw it differently. They just looked at it differently. They thought about it differently. And that made all the difference.
If you don't have too many opinions and are too stuck in your ways, you're able to be flexible enough to look at other things and go other places and do other things. Yes. Otherwise, you get into this fear-based worry about loss. Mm-hmm. It's gone. Money's not coming in anymore. It's, and it really is a dripping spiral of gooey, sticky, yucky stuff.
Yes, good. Nice adjectives. Love those. Yes. Really good. Gooey, sticky, yucky stuff.
And it's very powerful, gooey, sticky, yucky stuff.
Oh, yes.
It's a mire of it. And if you look at it, all it is your thoughts are focused on what you don't want. Oh my gosh, just my thoughts. That's it. Nothing else. Oh, okay. I can be happy right here, right now by changing my subject. Oh, yeah. Okay. Is that simple? Yeah, it is. And then you start realizing that you have more control over your life than you thought. And that's what I love about LOA. I started to realize I'm allowed to dream again. I'm allowed to have possibilities and visions again,
Right.
My wife and I love looking at $1 million plus $1 million to $10 million houses. Just because we know we can, and the law of attraction can possibly bring them. So why not do it, and feels good looking at them for no other reason than it just feels good. Especially
go for the ones that they feel good regardless of the price tag. Don't worry about the price tag.
Exactly.
Because Louise and I found this out. We actively were just doing house hunting, not because we were ready to buy a house. We really weren't anywhere close to being able to buy a house, but just because we wanted to see what was out there and we wanted to have an LOA type experience, as we called it. The thing that really blew our minds is that price has almost nothing to do with the quality of the houses. I mean, it's mind blowing. We saw houses.
It's based around how many rooms there are. It's 100,000 per room.
Generally, yeah, it's about that here too. About the same thing, a little bit more maybe, but
and it doesn't matter how crappy the house is. It's 100,000 per room.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. We saw houses that were selling for $750,000 that you couldn't pay me to live in. And we saw houses that were for, $300,000 to $500,000 that looks like a nice house. I enjoy that one. Didn't really fit the parameters of what was a nice house. Like you said, it was how many bedrooms were there. But, in terms of the houses themselves, some of them were just god awful for the price and some were gorgeous for the price. So when you see enough of those, at least for Louise and me, what we ended up doing was saying, it doesn't really matter what the price is. What do we like? Screw the price.
Yeah, it's just so amazing.
Take that out of the... Oh, yeah.
Swimming pools and jacuzzis and...
jacuzzi. Well, I'm not surprised you like the jacuzzi. I mean, let's be honest about that.
Steam room, sauna.
You're probably going to bring the club over to your house. I mean, that's where it's all going to end up, right?
That's probably exactly what I do. We'll sit around my house and discuss philosophy in the sauna. That'd be cool.
Yeah, Speaker's Corner is going to move outside of town to Louis' house.
Welcome, Londoners.
Yeah, good stuff.
So I was in America on holiday, and I was going from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, and halfway across the drive, I was getting late, so I told SatNav to find me a local place to go for the night to sleep, and it was a Great Western. And I pulled in, and I was at the front desk, and I was saying, what kind of rooms do you have and all the rest of it. And the woman said, hey, let me tell you something. Pulled me away from the desk. It was an American lady. I said, yeah, what do you want to tell me? She says, I have been going to hotels and getting these kind of accommodations for years. Let me tell you a little tip. I said, okay, great. She said, what you do is you ask them what's their most expensive room.
Oh, nice.
And I said, okay, and then what? And then you say, how much is that? And then they say so much. And say, okay, it's a little bit high. What else you got? And then as you come down, you get a really good room at a lower price. But if you went from the bottom upwards, you get a crappy room. She says you always start from the top downwards.
That makes
I
sense,
loved
doesn't
it.
it?
You know,
Yeah.
from an LOA perspective, it just made so much sense. And I knew there was a
Right.
big secret in there. And it was when LOA kicked in, I was like, that's what you're talking about. You focus on the big and best, and then, you know, you accommodate to where you're at, and you get something that's really nice. But if you start saying, I can only just afford this, and, you know, it's, you're going to
get what you ask for.
This.
It's true. You get what you ask for.
Yeah.
It's very true. By the way, I'm going to go off on a quick tangent here because Josie's asked you a question. Josie likes to ask questions that are kind of out of the thin blue sky that really don't necessarily match up, but we'll ask
Don't worry,
anyway.
Josie, we'll adapt, improvise, and overcome.
She says, have you heard of the violet flame meditation? And I have to say, I have never heard of that. Do you have any familiarity with that?
No, not at all. So it sounds like it's relating to a candle, maybe. A red one.
Could be. I'm curious how they made the flame violet. You know, other than that, I really have no knowledge of it whatsoever.
But yeah, if she can explain it, maybe we can go into it. So
sure.
The thing about incense, candles, etc., with meditation, there's an interesting aspect to it that I learned along the ways. Are you needing the candle to help you meditate? Are you needing the incense to help you meditate? If you are, you're now needing something outside yourself to help yourself. And if you take away the candle and the incense, are you going to be as effective or not?
Good point.
So I learned to basically have nothing, just my thoughts. And then I try and stop those too. So, you know, sitting in my bed, lotus position, back straight.
You actually do the lotus position, huh?
Yeah, I can do the full lotus. Yeah.
Oh, you're crazy. I'm sorry, you're just plain crazy.
I can do a headstand and a lotus at the same time.
All right, you're going to have to take a photo of that and share it with us just so that we can see
no
it.
Problem. I could do a headstand right now on this chair, but never mind. I've taken thousands of photographs of me doing headstands all around the world in different views from, you know, mountainsides.
Yeah, but you got to do it in lotus position. It's got to be lotus. Otherwise, forget it. I'm not interested.
Yeah, you can do lotus as well. It's easy. Once you can do the lotus, you can do a headstand with a lotus. But I remember spending hours and hours and hours. A Rotary Exchange student from America was staying with us in South Africa, and she could do the headstand. And I was very, very intrigued by this. So I spent hours trying to do the headstand as a kid at the age of about 10 or 11. And I always felt it was easier on a slope than straight up. But when I do a headstand, I do it like this in the V shape. I don't do it with my hands like that anymore. And it's just a lot easier that way, a huge amount easier. But I was doing it like that. So eventually I managed to do it like this. But it's difficult for me because I'm double jointed in my in my shoulders. So
that's tricky. Okay.
It makes for a weak arm. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, it doesn't really have any other negative effect on your life. It just gives you a slightly weaker arm. But you're more flexible. I was doing Aikido, and the instructor was always using me as a guinea pig for some reason or other. And I said to him one day, "Am I supposed to try and get out of this?" He said, "Yeah, of course." And because I was double jointed, I was like, "Okay." And he realized with me, he had to do the twisting like 3 times more than he usually did.
Oh, jeez.
And, you know, he learned something in the class and I learned something as well.
I guess so, yeah.
It was very interesting.
It's a case of be careful what you focus your attention on. If you focus your attention on the student who's double jointed, you're not going to get the class you had in mind.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things that I learned from that little scenario about starting from the top. So when I'm looking at my Jaguar, my next Jaguar example, I'm looking at the top of the range first. Mm-hmm. You know, when I'm looking at another house or something, I'm looking at the top of the range first. And then I slowly work my way down. So, anything in life, I'm looking at the biggest and best version of whatever it is, be it my humility, be it my strength, be it my compassion, be it my anything. You're looking at the biggest and best version that you can see out there and what you want to use and what you can use. So, yeah. There was an airport scenario that I watched. I watched a husband come back, and there was the wife and children there. And the way they embraced each other when they saw each other again was so, it was on a source level. They were recognizing their souls rather than their physical beings to such a degree. And I was just, that is so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And, I use that often as an image of, how I want my family to be, and how I want my experience with other people to be, is really looking at their source and saying, look, what's the same in you is the same in me. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for the opinionated differences or anything like that. So when I go into all these discussions with everybody, with the Christians and the Muslims at Speaker's Corner, etc., and I'm talking about how much I like their religion, not what I dislike about it, and they're like a bit confused. Where do they go from here? It's not what you normally get.
Well, you're not used to having everybody agree with you. You're used to having everybody disagree with you. So you're expecting the fight, and now there's no fight. It's like, well, what do you do? It's exactly. Like when Louise was a therapist, she would do the same thing with her clients. She'd say, if she's trying to teach the client how to avoid constantly getting into fights with their spouse or whatever, she'd pick up a pillow off the couch and throw it to him and say, okay, now throw it back to me. And she'd catch it, throw it back, and okay, now throw it to me again. And this time she'd let it fall to the floor. And she'd say, see, if I don't engage in the game ends. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. Just don't play the game.
Yep.
And that's where you get the aha moments, the little light bulbs going off on top of the head.
Yeah. And that's where the flexibility needs to come in, when you have no real opinion. Mm-hmm. When you have no opinion, there's nothing for anybody to grab onto.
Right.
It's just your hand slides off.
Yep. Yeah. It's Aikido of the brain is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because Aikido is a complete defense.
That kind of concept where, in Kung Fu, somebody's striking me. All I do is I do a very slight block, just enough to get the hand going away from my face, or I move my head slightly, but that's it. Nothing else. You don't bash them like karate when you try and break their arm and things like that. You just,
it's a subtle approach.
I really enjoy teaching my children Kung Fu in a very playful way. It's a lot of fun.
Well, what you're talking about here is actually a form of mental Kung Fu when you really think about it. Because when you're talking about not having an opinion about basically going with whatever the flow is that happens to be coming your way, you're in a non-confrontational stance in every single situation. And when you're non-confrontational, well, then there can't be confrontation. Mm-hmm. It can't be there.
If somebody says, you're ugly, you say, yeah, I know. My mom thought so too. What does somebody say to that? Just
well, they glaze over in the eyes a little bit.
Yeah. But, yeah. You say, you're ugly. Well, you're very pretty. What do they say to that? It's really fun when you learn to play that game, when you understand the rules of how to almost not engage. When you're just not engaging at all, you're just playing your own game and having fun with it, and they don't know what to do with that.
Well, there's also an energetic side to that. Basically what we're really talking about here is different strategies for making that source connection you were talking about a moment ago when you told the story about the family that were greeting each other in the airport. And it really kind of focuses attention on the fact that source stories, as I'll call them here, they're really the ones that we want in life anyway. That's really what we're aiming for. So, we may be in a COVID lockdown, and we may be dealing with an income stream that has been temporarily or maybe even permanently lost. But focusing on that isn't really going to help. What's going to help is focusing on the source energy streams and all the different ways that they manifest in our daily lives. The biggest problem I think we have is just noticing that they're there. I think we can't skip by
One
that.
thing people don't quite get about their job they just lost is they manifested it through thought.
True.
From source.
Yeah.
And you just need to go back there because that's where it all comes from.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. It's
there.
probably the most important lesson. And I honestly am still learning this one. I've known this for quite some time, years, in fact, and I still have to remind myself. That everything that is in my life, I manifested. And I did it with a great deal of power and a great deal of ability. And yet there's so many times when I'll look at something that's in my life and I will look at it as if it were foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just because on some level, I'm not accepting the fact that I created that, especially if it's something I didn't want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we can come to the awareness that we did that, that's a really powerful awareness. The other thing that I think is really important, and you've touched on this indirectly a number of times in what you were describing, is our biggest challenge, and this is something David Strickle, who does the Tuesday show with me, Stream of David, he makes a real point of this. If you can look at what he calls your transgressors, the people, the events, the experiences in your life that come along that you feel like in some way work against you or violate you or are harming you in some way or whatever. If you can look at them in a way that is different, that thinks about them differently,
Absolutely.
You're going to have an entirely different experience. And ultimately your goal is to get to the point where they really don't even matter to you anymore.
And
now, it's a very advanced state, but that's where you're trying to get to.
And that's pretty much where I am. I mean, I look back in my life, who's transgressed against me? And it's like, nobody. That person taught me a great lesson. That person helped me understand that. That person forced me to look at this. It's all great.
I love it.
It's very liberating. You have no idea how liberating that is. I remember one of my siblings was saying about my dad. He said something negative about him, and that's why I didn't like my dad. And I said, one thing my dad did, and you don't like him for what about all the other things? What don't they count? I said, Dad did that to me too, and I loved the guy, absolutely loved him, and still do.
Talk about holding a grudge.
Did he transgress in different ways at different times? Of course. Everybody does, who's close to you in one shape or form. If you look at them as transgressions, and if you,
hey, I've got a question. I got a question for you. How many times have you transgressed against yourself?
Oh, no, that's another story. I can tell you, I'm now doing it far less than I ever used to.
Good for you. That's good.
And, the transgressions become different. In the beginning, they're very clear and standouty, and then they become far subtler. Like, it still hasn't worked out for me yet. When am I going to get that? When am I going to become better at this aspect of this game that I'm playing at the moment? And that's a transgression to yourself. It's like,
we don't think of it that way, do we?
Wouldn't it be nice if, I just got that move perfected beautifully? I can get there. Wouldn't it be nice? But no, you're sitting there saying to yourself, and you do transgress. You're saying to yourself something like, I really wish I could get there. One day, maybe. And you're like,
I love the way you phrased it. When am I going to? That's like the most common form. Basically it's saying, well, it should have happened by now. There must be something wrong. It must not really work. And the moment that you've gone to that path,
and as you become more aware, you can deal with those easier and easier and easier. So the key about life, again, is awareness. With awareness becomes relaxation, clarity, more energy, more vibrancy, more carpe diem, seizing the day, living life. So
a lot of people call mindfulness.
The key of it is awareness, sitting in the middle there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That awareness is amazing when we are able to tap into it. And as you've pretty much given testimony here, you've managed to do it pretty consistently in your life, which is absolutely amazing and fantastic. But that awareness is huge. And it's really the diametric opposite of the cloudy mind that Anne-Marie was talking about. She was talking about how, it seems like she's in that cloudy mind state so often. It's because of, truly, it's a lack of awareness of the flip side. That flip side is where the attention needs to be, but we keep it on, oh, God, when's this going to happen? When's this going to change? We're on the wrong side. We're looking at the wrong side of the coin.
There's also the element of building up your LOA muscle.
Talk about
knowing
that.
what you don't want, going to what you do want. Muscle. As you practice it, you get better at it. You get better at doing it more and more often. And the clearer you can disseminate between different subjects in your mind, the better. Because when you can realize that there's a subject you can go to quickly and easily, that'll lift your spirits. When you can realize that there's a subject that's really going to bring it down, when you realize that you change focus from one subject to another, you can change how you feel. And when you do that consistently and more often, the change happens in your life that you just don't believe. Things happen, people come, places, synchronization, all these things that all the gurus talk about and the guides and all the rest of it, synchronization. When you see a lot of it, you're in the zone, blah, blah, blah,
I like especially the fact that you describe it in terms of noticing it quicker and better. Because when you do notice it quicker and better, first of all, it means that, well, it is awareness, but it also means you're not giving any kind of generated momentum to the downside that you could have been sliding down by not noticing it. It's the failure to notice it that allows us to slide down that slippery slope. Well, the quicker that we notice that, the quicker we get off that slippery slope. And so all that momentum that would normally have built up doesn't build up. And so all of a sudden, we don't feel like life is working against us anymore. It's a subtle shift in one sense. It's an amazing shift in another sense. Yeah. Really, really
and,
great.
if my one wish to the world is so that they just understand this clearer and clearer.
Yeah.
Because it'll help everybody in every situation. There's no limit to it at all.
Yeah, that's true.
And, that's my passion in life. My passion is not to help those who are poor and weak and down and sad and all the rest of it. My interest is to help everybody be aware that no matter where they are in what situation, there are a few tools and understandings and principles which, when applied, can change things around. And it is logical, it's simple, it's clear, it's provable. I just want people to try it out. Try the LOA, test it.
By the way, I also want the people who are poor and down and out to also test it. I mean, we should make sure we're clear about that. It's not like we're saying, no, they're not allowed to.
Everybody. But, a lot of people are very good at helping those guys, as I've mentioned before. And I would definitely leave that to them. Well,
I guess it depends on how you define it.
It's a niche for those guys. It really is. I mean, there's some guys who are so good at it. And I just don't feel I have that strength with those guys. And there are other people who are so much better than me in those areas. And it's good to know where your strengths and your weaknesses are. So
yes, I
play
agree.
with your strengths. And that's what I'm quite clear about. It's not that I'm demeaning or saying that these people, I can't help them. If they grasp the philosophy, they can run with it. But there's usually a certain stage that they need to get to before they can listen to this kind of philosophy and concepts and understandings, where somebody else is very good at helping them get to that place. So.
And quite frankly, I have tried to help, and in some cases I've been able to help people who were that far down and out. I know people who were that far down and out who helped themselves, who have, sprung back to life, so to speak, phenomenally. Have absolutely amazing lives and careers afterward.
It's very fulfilling watching that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's where some of our best manifestation stories come from, actually. But the one thing that I do know is that they've got to want it. They've got to want it enough to actually do it, because no one can make them want it. I mean, I can sit here and I can pray and I can hope and I can just visualize all I want to about somebody wanting it, but if they don't want it, it's not going to help. They've got to want it.
Is They have their own belief structure about what they want, and
Right.
you only have so much ability to influence their belief structure.
Exactly.
But their belief structure is so much stronger than yours, and if they're not ready and not wanting to, there's nothing you can do. You can take a horse to water, you can't make it drink, kind of concept. But
and this is part of what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the ability to take the longer view and see things that we don't like in a different way. You know, if we see that we don't like that there are people who are in want, the people who are in poverty, people who are in abusive situations, people who are in all kinds of terrible life experiences that we just wouldn't want to have anything to do with, and we would desperately love them to be out of them. I'm not going to suggest for a moment that they all want to be in that position, but there are some who will fight very hard to stay there. There are some who will fight, and they may not even do it consciously. But every single time that somebody comes to them with, well, here's something you could do, here's something you could do, you could shift out, you could try this, they always find a way to go back to their right where they are. And I've even had some, I can think of one person.
Spouses and things like that.
Oh, God, yes. I can think of one person Louise and I tried to help for years. I mean, he was an employee of ours, and he actually listened to the podcast for a while. And I would talk to him. I would explain to him in great detail, answer his questions. I get it. But he never actually took any action on it. Why? Mm-hmm. Because he just wasn't ready to.
It's not that.
He just wasn't ready to.
The not ready part is just the active vibration of where they are is so strong that they're not able to break out of the hold that their past thinking has over them. Because it's
that's a good way of
vibration and it's so strong that they don't have the slingshot momentum to break out of that force field that's dragging them back to that vibration. And
but that's also where the willingness has to come in. You have to be absolutely willing to do it.
Yeah, once you're willing, you're starting to look at the other side.
Yeah,
and that you focus on that side,
he was
drawn towards it.
Yeah, he was an expert at taking his current situation and justifying it in the face of anything that I could suggest to him in terms of how he would climb out of it. And he would agree that he could climb out that way, and then he'd find a way to tell me how it wouldn't work. And he would go out of his way to find ways to tell me that it wouldn't work. And I realized I can't help the guy any more than I've helped him. I've given him as much as I can possibly give him. That and more. We gave him a lot of help in a lot of different ways. But ultimately, he's the one who has to take the lifeline. If he's not going to take the lifeline, he's going to sink. And I have to be okay with that. And that's probably the biggest part of it, I think, is
that is
being
the biggest
okay.
part of many people. Yep.
Yeah, it's just being okay with the fact that, you know what? They're just not ready to take that lifeline. Whatever the reason is, they're just not ready to. And when they're ready, they will be ready. But until then, they're just not ready. And I have to respect that. Why do I have to respect that? For the same reason that I would want somebody to respect me on the same thing. I am a creator. I'm a conscious creator. I'm a point of attraction. I am a being. I'm basically a godlike being because I am capable of creating, using source energy, anything. And I don't want somebody to come along and interfere with what I'm trying to create because they don't approve of it or they wouldn't like it or so I give the same respect to everybody else because that's the kind of respect I would want.
Exactly.
I think it's the only way really to live. Now, it's a little bit of a moral position that I take. And I don't take it from the point of view of, well, I'm right and you're wrong. That's just the way I look at it myself. How you want to look at it? You can look at it any way you want to. I don't really care. But that's the way I choose to look at it.
I love giving the people freedom to believe what they want. I love it. It's to me the most primarily important thing that I can give somebody else is
it's a great
respect
gift.
That where they are, that moment in time is an accumulation of all their past experience, and this is the belief structure that has come out of that, and it needs to be respected.
Yep.
It needs to be respected, and if I put in ideas out there, I don't need them to take them on board. But I do like talking about them, so I do it because I enjoy talking about them, not because I need them to change. And people feel that. They say, you're so live, you're so active, you're so enthusiastic about your subject. This is incredible. I said, yeah, I love it. I don't need you to believe any of it.
Tis true. Yeah. Well, I feel the same way about doing a podcast. That's why I do it 5 days a week. I mean, I've many times been asked by people who have been in the, I'll call it the LOA/coaching/energy/therapy/whatever you want to call it, business a lot longer than I have.
New age world, man.
The new age, yeah. New thought, whatever you want to call it. They've been doing this a lot longer than I have, and they ask me, how on earth can you do this show 5 days a week? And my response is, how could I do it so little? I love it so much. That's how I could do it. I love it so much. When you love something, you just keep going with it.
There's something I wanted to mention that you mentioned. You talked about vaccines, and I thought that would be something we could really talk about on another show. I've got a few thoughts.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
About the whole philosophy of the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a note.
I know we're nearing the end now, so you might want to get...
Yeah, well, we got a few minutes left, but I don't think we can do justice to it in 4 minutes, so you're right. We'll leave that for another time.
Another episode, but I think that'll be a good topic.
All right, well, let's make it a topic for the next time you and I get together.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And maybe Amy will be here. Boy, I'm sure she'll have some opinions on it, too. That'll be really fun.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I want to remind people, first of all, make sure you have the LOA Today app. But secondly, take advantage of one of the features in the app, which is the ability to send in questions and comments. And the reason I say that is all of my co-hosts and myself love when we get emails or messages of any kind from our listeners, particularly, though, when they ask us to talk about a topic. So, for instance, if you were the one who wanted us to talk about vaccine or anti-vaxxing, send it in. That's what that little form is for. It's called Ask a Question.
Any specific aspect about the vaccine, yeah.
Yeah. Because that's so much fun for us to talk about, and I know from the feedback that we get from listeners, they really appreciate it. So, it's a win-win situation for sure. But don't be afraid. That's what that form is for. It's not just for asking a question.
You can come on live. We'll take you on live.
Oh God, yeah. When that doesn't happen very often, but when that happens, that's really cool. Having somebody come on live. In fact, I'll just finish with a little brief story. On Thursday, now that would be 2 shows before this one. I have to be careful because local cable access, they see this about 10 days after we're done. So the schedule, the days of the week don't quite work. But 2 shows ago, Alex King and I did a show on a guy who had posted on Facebook, basically saying, I am a liar, I am a horrible human being, I treat people badly, all this other stuff, and I need some help with that. And we were both kind of blown away that, first of all, he actually admitted that and said it in a public forum. And we did an entire show on it. And I shared a link with the guy so he could go listen to it. And he said it was hard to listen to, but he really appreciated it. And I'm thinking, wow, if you can be in that kind of place that he was in, and he was in a pretty bad place, to focus that way and to have enough daring to raise the question and then feel good about it. If you can do that with that kind of question, is there any kind of question that we can't address that's going to be helpful in some way? I mean, really, I don't think there is. That's my point. There is no topic that we can't address that's going to be helpful to the person who's asking us to address it.
There's something I wanted to bring up about that. I'll leave the listeners with a little question in their mind, and we'll tackle it next week. The question is, which harms the world more? People who are doing good or people who are bad?
Okay.
There's a challenge for everybody. Just think about that for a while, and then we will go into it next week.
And use the form to send in your responses, too. It doesn't have to be a question. You can give us your opinion about that. So, okay. Sounds good. I think then that just about covers it. I appreciate Josie's question. I'm sorry we couldn't answer her question about the violet flame meditation. I guess one thing I wanted to add about that is, does it really matter what kind of meditation you do? I mean, if I had to do meditation in Lotus, I'd be dead.
I'll look it up and I'll find out.
You'll find out? Okay. All right. That's cool. Yeah. For me, I mean, I'm glad.
Different concepts. And if Josie brings it up, there'll be a reason. Yeah.
They're always with Josie. No doubt about that. And for me, if I can do any kind of meditation, I figure I'm doing good. So I don't worry about whether it's got a violet flame or not. Hey, I did a meditation. Hooray. Okay. I pulled it off. So thank you very much, Louie. This has been very insightful as usual. Thank you especially to our live streamers and to our podcast listeners as well, and to all people watching us on cable access. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.